अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन. क्या हाल है आप लोगों का? The correct answer is 16 pi. Yes. I can see most of you have given the correct answer. 16 pi it is. Good job. Yes, I know I am late. Apologies about that. Khair, anyway. So let's start. वालेकुम सलाम. क्या हाल है आप लोगों की? कैसी तैयारी आपकी कैसी चल रही है आपकी तैयारी? Sir, do you think the IGCSE paper 4 will have a low threshold? Okay, I don't think so, honestly, because from what I've seen, it was fairly easy, but that's me and I could be wrong. So let's see. You comment, bhai, is the trigonometry and bearing come in paper 1? Yes, of course it comes in paper 1, beta. I have shared a whole PDF of questions of trigonometry that came in paper 1. कैसे बच्चे हैं ना इंस्ट्रक्शंस पढ़ते हैं ना टाइटल पढ़ते हैं. So what are the marks essential for A in math? Although that varies from paper to paper, but on the safe side you should be aiming for 70 plus. Hello bro. Thank you for the love. How long will this stream be? Well, till 6, because at 6 p.m. I'm streaming coordinate geometry and graphs of inequalities, by the way. So we're doing 2 streams today. One for trigonometry and the other for coordinate geometry and inequalities. Okay. So let's go over the concepts first. Okay. You guys can download the PDF with past paper questions, but not with of the notes yet because we haven't done anything as far as the notes are concerned. So once I'm done with this file, you guys can download this file also. Okay. So very important question. Will you cover trig formulas? Yes, that's exactly what I plan on covering. Okay. So let's get to work. Trigonometry, paper 1. Okay, and paper 1, you know what that means, right? Paper 1 means no calculator. So you said 70 from 75 or 100? Beta, paper 1 is out of 80, so 70 or 75 out of 80. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, now, so first of all, remember this identity, which although is not frequently tested, but it is part of the syllabus. Okay, in fact, some teachers don't even teach this, so please don't start harassing them. Okay, you haven't done this, it's part of the syllabus. If they don't do it, they have good reason for it because it's not tested. There's only like one question that has come so far. Okay, and it's of complementary. Now, I'm not sure if that's how you spell complementary. I think it's with an E at the end, but let me check. Complementa. Yeah, okay, I've done it correctly. Complementary angle identity. Okay, that's because sine of and this identity is basically sine 90 minus theta is equals to cos theta. Okay, and cos of 90 minus theta is equals to sine theta. So now what exactly are complementary angles? So first let's have a look at that also before we get into the identity. So complementary angle are basically angles that add up to 90 degrees. So let's write that down over here. Complementary complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. Like for example 30. Now what would complement 30? 60 degrees. Okay. Let's say you have 40. Now what would complement 40? 50 degrees. Okay. Let's say you have 45. Now what would complement 45? 45 degrees. Why? Because these two angles, as you can see, sum up to 90 degrees. Okay. Now the identity says this. So for example, if let's say you have sine 30. Now in terms of cos, you know what this is going to be equal to? This is going to be equal to cos 60. Reason? Because 30 and 60 are complementary angles. So sine of one angle will be equal to cos of the complementary angle. So just like that, if let's say you have sine 20, in terms of cos, you know what this is going to be equal to? This is going to be equal to cos 70. Just like that, if let's say you have sine 45, in terms of cos, you know what? It's going to be equal to cos 45. Okay? So just remember this. Okay? What exactly does a question on this look like? Don't worry too much about that. When we get to the questions, I'll show you guys what a question looks like. Yeah, supplementary or 180. Okay. Now let's talk about supplementary angle identities. Now I have a whole video of this where I've explained this in detail. I'm not going to go in much detail right now, but let's just review it anyway. These two are your main identities, by the way, 1 and 2, for complementary angle. Okay. Now what are supplementary angles? Supplementary angles are angles that add up to 180 degrees. So again, let's write that down. Supplementary I'm eating an apple, beta. Okay. So remember this. That if let's say you have sine of 180 minus theta, that's equal to what? That's equal to sine theta. Okay. And just like that, if let's say you have cos of 180 minus theta, what's that equal to? That's equal to minus cos theta. Okay. Now again, I have a detailed video on this. I'm not going to go into the details, but I'll just do a few examples over here. So if let's say you work out sine 30, you will notice that sine 30 equals to 0.5. And also, if you work out sine 150, and where did 150 come from? 150 is basically the supplementary angle of 30. So you'll notice that's also equal to positive 0.5. Okay. And just like that, if let's say you work out sine 60, so what is sine 60 equal to? Sine 60 is equals to, okay, my calculator is in radian mode. Let's fix that. So if you work out sine 60, that's equal to under root 3 upon 2. And just like that, if you work out sine 120, and since 120 is the supplementary angle of 60, you'll notice that that is also equal to under root 3 upon 2. Okay. Now, you can take any angle as long as it's less than 180. So if let's say you take sine 100, you will notice that sine 100 is the same as sine of 180. And that is where this identity comes from, that sine of 180 minus theta is equal to sine of theta. Okay, so this is the first identity. Let's do a few examples for the second identity also. If let's say you work out cos 60, now remember, as long as it's an acute angle, the value is going to be positive. Okay, so cos 60, you will notice, turns out to be 0.5, but if you work out cos 120, you'll notice that's equal to minus 0.5. Just like that, if let's say you work out cos 30, that's going to be equal to under root 3 upon 2. But if you work out cos 150, you will notice that's going to be equal to minus under root 3 upon 2. So if let's say you work out cos 100, so in order to bring these two equal, you will have to multiply one of the two by minus. So cos 100 is equals to minus cos 180, and that is where this identity comes from, that cos of 180 minus theta is equals to minus cos theta. Okay. When will you start streaming ad maths? Tomorrow, inshallah. Tomorrow, most likely, I'm doing logs. Okay. So don't forget to tune in. नहीं ये values memorize नहीं करनी भाई, ऐसे examples दे रहा हूँ, कैसे memorize करोगे? It's not possible. Okay, now so basically let's do an example and see this in action. Okay, so let's say that you have a triangle ABC. Okay, And it's not just any triangle, it's a right angle triangle. So here's A, here's B, here's C. Okay. And let's say you're given this to be 5 centimeter, you're given this to be 4 centimeter, and you're given this as x centimeter. Okay. So let's say you're asked to find the following. Okay. Find the following. In the first part, let's say you're asked to find x. Okay. Now, while I'm writing down the other questions, I want you guys to find out part x and share your answer with me. Okay. And you're asked to find out sine of ACB. Just like that, you're asked to find out cos of ACB. And just like that, you're asked to find out tan of ACB. Okay. So first of all, let's do this. Okay. So tell me your answers once you have them. Yes, I will do yearly past papers are fun. I will start yearly past papers. I think I'll most likely do a paper tomorrow. Let's see. X is 3, that's correct. Good job. So how did you figure that out? I'm assuming Pythagoras theorem. X squared plus 4 squared equals to 5 squared, which gave you that x is equals to 3. Okay, now there's no debate about plus minus. Since we're talking about length, it has to be positive. Okay, all lengths are in centimeters. Okay, now what about sine ACB? Sine, as we know, is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So what's the opposite length? The opposite length is x, which we now know is equal to 3. What's the hypotenuse length? It's equal to 3 upon 5. Okay. Yeah, exactly. You don't even have to use Pythagoras theorem. It's a 3, 4, 5 right angle triangle. Okay, I didn't think you guys would be that smart to figure that out. Actually, I'm just kidding. Okay. I know you guys are pretty smart. Cos ACB. So cos ACB means adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's 4 upon 5. Okay. And what about tan ACB? Tan is equals to opposite over adjacent. So that means 3 upon 4. Okay. Now, this stuff is pretty straightforward. Okay. Now, let's say, now this is the part where I'm adding the twist in the question. Okay. So let's say there's part 5 to this question, which is asking you to find out sine of, let's call this x. Okay. In fact, x, let's call it d. Let's say now you're asked to find out sine of ACD. And remember, all this you're going to do without a calculator. Okay. All this you're going to do without a calculator. So what are your thoughts on paper 2 and paper 4 IGCSE Math? I think there was nothing unusual in IGCSE paper 2 and paper 4. So nothing really where I didn't really feel the need to comment on anything because, like I said, there's nothing unusual. Okay. So cos of ACD. Okay. And yeah. Now what are you going to do? Yes, this is paper 1. क्या मैंने टाइटल में लिखा नहीं है? अच्छा, मैं काम करता हूँ, मैं पेपर 1 को एंड में लिखा हुआ है, पहले लिख देता हूँ. वैसे आप लोग थोड़ी जहमत खुद भी कर सकते हैं, पढ़ सकते हैं आप लोग, बट चने आप लोग का इतनी तकलीफ़ करेंगे, मैं लिख देता हूँ. There you go. Okay. So basically, sine ACD, how will you find out sine ACD? Sine ACD is equal to, now notice something. What we worked out is basically sine theta. Okay. Now what the question is trying to make us find out is sine of 180 minus theta. So in terms of theta, if you think about it, sine ACD is actually equal to what? Is actually equal to sine of 180 minus theta, which we know from prior knowledge. We're not going to do 180 minus that. Okay, we're not going to do that. Which we know from prior knowledge is the same as sine 180 minus theta. So that basically means that sine of ACD is going to be the same as sine of the supplementary angles. So sine of the supplementary angle basically means that it's going to be the same as sine of ACB, which means that it's going to be the same as 3 upon 5. Okay. Yeah, I know I wrote it, but I've sort of written it earlier now. Okay. So basically, long story short, sine ACD is going to be what? Sine ACD is going to be nothing, it's not going to be any different from sine ACB. Why? Because these two angles are supplementary. That is why it's going to be equal to 3 upon 5, and that's it. Okay, that's it. Now, as far as cos is concerned, now what do we know about cos? We know from prior knowledge that cos of 180 minus theta, basically cos of the supplementary angle is equal to minus of the cos of the acute angle. So notice that we already know what cos of theta is. So cos ACD will be equal to minus cos of ACB. Now cos ACB is something that we've already worked out, right? It's 4 upon 5. So all we got to do is we got to change the sign. So the final answer turns out to be minus 4 upon 5. And there you go. That's it. Also, we don't have it for tan, okay? We only have it for sine and cos, so don't worry about tan. Okay. Now, long story short, for sine, you let the sign be as it is. Okay. If it's positive, it remains positive. And for cos, what we do is we change the sign. Long story short, with cos, you multiply it by minus. With sine, you let it be. Okay. Now, so let's do the next question. As far as concepts are concerned, honestly, this is all there is. Okay. Now I'll give you guys another example, which maybe you can solve without my help. Okay. So this was the first example. Let me give you guys another example, and then we'll just head over to past paper questions. Okay. And remember, no calculator, huh? Okay, for those of you who are asking me to highlight the story behind this, I've made a detailed video on this. Okay, you guys can go check that out. In today's video, I want to put special emphasis on past paper questions. Okay, that's what I'm waiting to solve. Okay, so you can check that video out. You'll find the answer. So can you do a mensuration video 3D possibly? Okay, I do plan on doing that, but not tomorrow. But I do plan on doing that. Okay, so here's what you have to find out. Find the following. Find out the value of x in the first part. Okay. Then find out sine of PRQ. Okay. Then find out cos of PRQ. Okay. Then in the fourth part, find out sine of PRS. Okay. Then in the fifth part, find out cos of PRS. There you go. Yeah, Beta, you're very welcome to sneak the calculator for Math P1. Let us know what happens. Please set an example for everyone else. Go ahead. X equals to 144. Well, it's not 144x. Well, you're on the right track, but that's not the final answer. Thodi akal istemal karo, but how can you have this length greater than the hypotenuse? I mean, come on, use some common sense. If that's not too much to ask. Yes, x is 12. So x is equal to 12. If you're wondering why that is, that's because x square plus 5 square equals to 13 square. So x is equals to 12. Okay. So now what about sine PRQ and everything else? Second part is 12 upon 13. Is it 12 upon 13? Isn't sine equal to opposite over hypotenuse? So it's going to be 5 upon 13, fellas, not 12 upon 13. Acha, what about cos PRQ? Why do I call everyone beta? I look 21. Okay, so that's a compliment. I'll take that as a compliment. Then what about the third part? Yeah, the third part is 12 upon 13. Good job. Sine PRS. Okay, what do we do for sine PRS? For sine PRS, yep, sine PRS is the same as sine PRQ. So that means that's going to be equal to 5 upon 13 as well. And as far as cos PRS is concerned, the only thing that we're going to do now is we're going to change the sign of the previous cos value, which means minus 12 upon 13. Okay. Yes, I know paper 4 is on YouTube. I know P1 is also on YouTube. Probably yesterday's M1 also is on YouTube. Okay. So Only if your paper has gone exceptionally well, go ahead and watch it. Otherwise, I wouldn't suggest that. No, I did not delete the video. I took it down because of copyright issues. Okay. I mean, YouTube took it down because of copyright issues. Okay, brilliant. Now that we're done with the notes, now we'll do bearing later. Let's do a few questions of trigonometry. Okay. Then we'll do bearing. So y sine PRQ equals to PRS because the two angles are supplementary. Okay, so sine of one value is the same as sine of its supplementary angle. Okay. Now here's question number 22. This is an extremely old question, probably way before you guys were even born. So this is May-June 2003, paper 1. Yeah. So it says it is given that sine 30 equals to 0.5 and cos 30 is equals to 0.866. Write down the value of cos 150 and cos 60. Okay. How do we do that? How do we find out the value of cos 150 and cos 60? So I'll let you guys figure this out. I'll give you guys 2 minutes. When you have the answer, do share it, and then we'll discuss. The reason why it was minus 12 upon 13 is because it was the supplementary angle. And for the supplementary angle, the sign changes. Minus 0.866. Yep, that's correct. Okay, so for A part 1, this is the identity that we're going to use. Remember, cos of 180 minus theta is equals to minus cos theta. Now notice that the question is asking you to find out the value of cos 150, and we know from prior knowledge that cos 150 is going to be equal to minus cos 30. Okay, so cos 150 will be equal to minus cos 30. We already have the value of cos 30, so that means cos 150 is going to be equal to minus 0.866. Okay, then it says cos 60. Okay, so what's the value of cos 60 going to be? What do you think? What do you think will be the value for cos 60? How will we find out the value for cos 60? What is cos 60 going to be equal to? So let's start with that. Cos 60 will be equal to what? Let's say is equal to minus cos 120, but the thing is we don't have cos 120. What do we do then? Cos 60 is equal to... Actually, let me not put a cross there. You might think that's wrong. It's not wrong, but we don't know what cos 120 is. The one in the description is different. Is that the case? I don't think so. It's the same. Cos 60 will be equal to... Nope. Nope, that's incorrect. Yes, cos 60 is going to be equal to 0.5. So cos 60 is basically going to be the same as sine 30. Now, cos 60... we don't know what it is, but we do know what sine 30 is, and that's equal to 0.5. So cos 60 is also equal to 0.5. Okay, then we have part B. So this is A part 1 and 2. Now let's do part B. Let's see what part B says. Okay, so yes, complementary angle. So part B says a triangle has sides of 6 and 5 centimeter, and the angle between these two sides is 150. So that means we're looking at a triangle that perhaps looks something like this. Okay, here's 6, here's 5, not drawn to scale, and this is 150 degrees. Okay, now remember this is paper 1. Okay, so you can't use a calculator for this. So the formula to calculate the area is 1 upon 2 into A into B into sine C, where you have two sides and one included angle. Okay, so 1 upon 2 into 6 into 5 into sine 150. Now the thing is, where do we get the value of sine 150? So we know from prior knowledge that sine 150 is going to be the same as sine 30. Why? Because 150 and 30 are supplementary angles. So here's what we're going to do. Half into 6 into 5 into sine 30. And notice we already know what sine 30 is equals to. We know that sine 30 is equals to 0.5. So here's what we're doing. 1 upon 2 into 6 into 5 into 0.5. Okay, I'll write it down over here what I've done. That sine 150 is equals to sine 30. Why? Because of this concept right here. And I'll share these notes with you guys once we're done with the stream. So here we have 2 1s are. So 2 1s are, 2 3s are. 3 into 5 is 15. 15 into 0.5 basically means 15 into 1 upon 2, which is equal to 7.5 centimeter square. Okay, you don't have to worry about centimeter square. So what do we have? We have 7.5, and that's your final answer. Okay, so there you go. That's your answer. The one in the description is further trig. Okay, acha. Let me check. Let me quickly fix it. Acha, while I'm doing that, for those of you who are watching, I'd really appreciate if you guys would just like the stream. Okay, I'll fix it in a minute. Don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, you're right. Acha, so just give me a minute, I'll fix it. Oops. Okay, check now. It's fixed. Okay, you'll find the correct link in the description. You guys can download it from there. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So let's do the next question. This is bearing. We'll come to bearing later. Okay. So I want you guys to do this question. I'll give you guys a few minutes to figure this out. Let me know when you've done it. No, you can't do cross multiplication over here. Okay. You cannot do cross multiplication. Okay. How to prepare for a clash? Bio and math. Okay. First of all, I genuinely feel sorry for you guys. But how to prepare for it? Well, just make sure you don't leave anything for the last minute. Okay. Just don't leave everything. Just don't leave anything for the last minute, and get a good night's sleep. Because if there's anyone who needs a good night's sleep, it's you guys. Those of you who have 2 exams in one day. I can't say anything about the threshold, but it's going to be on the higher side, definitely not on the lower side. Sir, my variant is 12 and 22. Is there any changes of what you're doing now? No, there aren't any changes. Okay, if your variant is 12 and 22, then this is totally relevant for you. Anyway, so I'm going to solve this question now. Let's see what it says. So it says here, a man who is 1.8 meters tall stands on horizontal ground 50 meters from a vertical tree. The angle of elevation of the top of the tree from his eyes is 30 degrees. Okay. Use as much of the information below as necessary to calculate the estimate of the height of the tree. Okay, so we have a man who is 1.8 meters tall. He stands on horizontal ground 50 meters from a vertical tree. Okay, so basically here is the man. Okay, and here is the tree. Okay, now the height of the man, as you can see, is 1.8 meters. all right, and the height of the tree, we don't know that. Okay, so this is it. We'll call it T. Chalo, okay, T for tree. And how far he is from from a vertical tree? He is 50 meters away from a vertical tree. Okay. So basically, the question is further telling you that the angle of elevation. Okay, so you're given the angle of elevation. The angle of elevation, as we know, is the angle that is always measured from the horizontal. So the angle of elevation of the top of the tree from his eyes is 30 degrees. So that means this angle that you're looking at is 30 degrees. Okay, not according to me, but according to the question. Okay. Acha. Then let's see what the question says. The question says, use as much of the information below as necessary to calculate an estimate of the height of the tree. Okay. Now, let's see what the question says. Let's see what we have to do over here. Okay. So basically, what information can we use over here? The information that we can use over here is sine, cos, and tan. So notice that the adjacent side is 50. Okay. Now what I can do is I can use this triangle over here, the one that I'm highlighting. Okay, and find out part of this length. Okay, part of this length. So what can I use? I can use tan. So tan 30 equals to opposite. Now what's opposite? Opposite, let's call that x. Okay, this is x over adjacent, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 50. Okay, so what are we going to do now? We're going to take tan 30, which is 0.577, and multiply it by 50. So that's going to give us what? That's going to give us the value of x. Now remember, you can't use a calculator over here because this is paper 1. Okay, so you got to be able to figure this out without a calculator. So let's multiply 577 by 50. Let's see what do we get. So 0, 0, 0. So we put a cross here. 5 into 7 is 35. 5 into 7 is 35. 35 plus 3 is 38. 5 into 5 is 25. 25 plus 3 is 28. So let's find this out. So we have 0 here, 5 here, 8 here, 8 here, and 2 here. Now remember, this is basically what? This is basically 577 that we have multiplied by 50. Okay, so what are we going to do to our final answer? In our final answer, we're going to move the decimal one place backwards. Okay, so let's see what do we get. Let me just make sure I've gotten the correct answer. So the answer is going to be 28.85. Okay, so the final answer is going to be 28.85. So we're going to move the decimal 3 places backwards. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now 28.85 is what? 28.85 is this length. This length is 28.85. Now remember, this is not the height of the tree. In order to take the height of the tree, now you need to add the man's height also. So 28.85, in this we're going to add 1.80. So let's see what do we get. We get 5 over here. 8 plus 8 is 16. 8 plus 1 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. And 2 plus 1 is equals to what? Is equals to 3. So the final answer is equals to 30.65, and there you go. 30.65 is your final answer. So that's it. There you go. So what do you guys think about the difficulty level of the question? Easy, medium, hard? What do you say? Okay, I'd like you guys to do this question now. Do this question, give me your answer. No, you don't need to. Okay, now listen. First of all, you don't need to memorize any of the angles. Okay. You will be given, but you do need to realize the two identities. Okay. The complementary angle identities. So you have two complementary angle identities and you have two supplementary angle identities. So you got to make sure that you memorize those. Sir, it's not that difficult, but I want to. No, you can't round it off. It doesn't say anywhere that you're supposed to round it off. And besides, the answer that you're getting is an exact answer anyway. So you're not going to round it off. Okay. Okay, so can I have the answer to this question, please? 5 upon 12, that is the correct answer. Tan of BAC is going to be opposite upon adjacent. So opposite upon adjacent. Remember, this is the angle BSC. So this becomes your opposite length, and this becomes your adjacent length. So tan of BAC equals to what? Equals to opposite upon adjacent, which means 5 upon 12. And there you go. That's your answer. Okay, now what about this? Yeah, okay. What about this? Cos of ACD. What are we going to do in this case? Yep, cos of ACD will basically be, now first of all, ACD is this angle. Now we can't find out cos of this angle directly. And someone said cosine rule. Please don't use cosine rule. You'll just be wasting your time because it's a 90-degree triangle, okay? So we will find out cos of ACB. So cos of ACD will basically be equal to minus of cos of ACB. Why? Because they're supplementary angles. So cos ACB is going to be equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which means 5 over 13. So the final answer is going to be minus 5 over 13. There you go. That's your answer. Okay, now let's do another question. ज़रा 2-3 सवाल और करते हैं, फिर हम बेरिंग का सवाल करेंगे. Okay, work this out. Do part A, and while you're at it, you guys can do part B also. Let me know when you have the answer. Yeah, I think a minute of silence for those who use cosine rule. So we do this with sine and tan. What part are you talking about with sine and tan? So 2 sine 150, what is this equal to? Ramin, these type of questions, so all these questions, first of all, are paper 1 questions, and they're part of your syllabus. Now, whether or not they're frequent, not that frequent, but it's possible, okay? It is possible that you can get a question like this in past papers. How do I deal with questions where the description of the polygons are given and I have to name them? Yeah, where did you find such a question? Okay, so 1 is the answer for the first part. Let's see. So 2 sine 150 is what you have to evaluate. So 2 sine 150 is going to be the same as 2 sine 30. Why? Because 30, as you can see, is the supplementary angle of 150. So sine 30 from the table is 0.5. 2 into 0.5 is equal to 1. Okay. Okay, now here's B part 1. Now B part 1 says form an equation in x and show that it reduces to so and so. Now what are we going to use? We're going to use Pythagoras theorem. So x plus 1, the whole thing square, is the base square, plus 3x square, which is equal to 3x plus 1, the whole thing square. ये 4.48 कौन कह रहा है? 4.48 नहीं है, it's 1. 1 is your final answer. So if you expand this, here's what you get. You get x square plus 2x plus 1. Please do not forget to use the identity. Nobody will come and tell you that you have to use the identity. You have to figure it out yourself. Every time you see something that looks like a plus b, the whole thing square, you have to use the identity. So this becomes 9x square plus 6x plus 1. Now 9x square and 9x square gets cancelled out. Now you have x square plus 2x. Let's bring the 6x over to the left hand side. So that's minus 6x plus 1, and plus 1 also gets cancelled out. And now we have x square minus 4x equals to 0. Which, if you want, you can go a step further and you can find out the value of x. So if you take x square minus 4x equated to 0, let's solve for the value of x. So x into x minus 4 equals to 0, which means x equals to 0. Or x minus 4 equals to 0, which means that x equals to 4. So obviously 0 to nahi ho sakta. The value of x that we're going to give is 4. Okay. Now, so now that we have the value of x, it says given that BCD is a straight line, state the numerical value of cos DCA. Okay. So now that we have the value of x, we can solve this question easily. So let's replace the value of x. So 3x up kya ho jayega? 3 into 4, that's 12. So that means this side is 12. This side is 5 and this side is 13. Now how do we find out cos of DCA? So cos DCA is this angle. Now this would be equal to minus cos of ACB. So what's ACB? ACB is basically going to be adjacent, which is 5, over hypotenuse, which is 13. So minus 5 over 13 is your final answer. So there you go, minus 5 over 13 is your final answer. And that's it. Okay, now here's question number 6. This one's fairly easy. Let me see. Yeah, this one is still, in fact, I'd like you guys to do this question. Let's do 2-3 more questions of trigonometry and then we'll do bearing. I did something wrong? Did I? Nope, I don't think I did anything wrong. Cos DCA chahiye na, so cos DCA is going to be minus 5 over 13. That's it. That's correct. Sir, will it be expanded with a plus b into a minus b? A plus b, a minus b is used when you have x square minus b square. Okay, if you don't have x square minus b square, then of course you're not going to use. If you don't have a square minus b square, then you're not going to use a plus b, a minus b. Okay, so I'm going to do this question. Do this question. Yes, you can do that. After finishing all the past papers from 2018 to 2022, start with variance. Including variance, then you should do 2017 and backwards. No, x square minus 4x does not mean that identity. 4x is not a perfect square. Had it been x square minus 4, let's say even if it's x square minus 4, then also you don't have to use the identity. You can just take x square equals to 4 and solve it then. But 4x is not a perfect square. Okay. 26. All right. So let's see. So basically, if you want to find out BD, so let's see what trigonometric ratio we can use. We have the opposite length. We need to find out the hypotenuse length. So that means we have to use sine. So sine theta equals to opposite over hypotenuse, which is BD. Now we already have the value of sine theta. You can take the value of sine theta from the table. 5 upon 13 equals to 10 upon BD. Now cross multiply. In fact, before you cross multiply, make your life easy, simplify it. And now you have the value of BD, which is equal to 13 times 2. And what's that equal to? That's equal to 26 centimeters. Okay. So there you go. That's your answer. Now let's do one more question and then we'll do some bearing questions. Okay. पहले bearing का concept करेंगे, फिर bearing के questions करेंगे. Now, I want you guys to do this question because this is a question that came in my exam when I was giving CIs. This is a May June 2010 question. And we'll also do some fairly recent questions. Okay. Some recent questions where trigonometry has been tested. Or maybe not. I think that's good enough. Okay, anyway, let's see. So you guys solve this question, then we'll see what we can do next. Yep, I'm pretty old. Tell me about it. No, I don't like dark mode. A dash has two pair of equal sides and just one line of symmetry. Can I answer that question? Does it start with a K? I can't teach A-level further math. Someone would have to teach it to me first before I can teach it myself. ये चिचोर पने पे क्यों उतर आते हैं आप लोग? I appreciate that. This is the Rode NT USB Mini. Yeah, Rode NT USB Mini. 34. Okay. 34, 68. Okay. 34 again. All right. 34, 34, 34. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, so if you want to find out AB, here's what you can do. I wouldn't recommend that you use sine rule over here. Yeah, in fact, I will not at all recommend that you use sine rule. Use a bit of common sense, if that's not too much to ask. So you make a perpendicular from B. What that does is that divides AC into half. So this is 16 centimeter and this is 16 centimeter. Okay. Now, AB, if you think about it, relative to this triangle, AB is actually the hypotenuse length. Okay, I say, relative to this triangle, AB is the hypotenuse length. So what trigonometric ratio can I use? I have the adjacent length and I need to find out the hypotenuse length. So that means we can use cos. So cos theta equals to the adjacent, which is 16, over the hypotenuse, which is AB. Now what is cos theta equal to? Cos theta is equal to 8 upon 17. So 8 upon 17 is equals to 16 upon AB. So 8 ones are, 8 twos are, cross multiply. AB is equals to 17 times 2, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 34. So whoever said 34, pat yourself on the back. Good job. That's your answer. Okay, now do part B. Find out the area of triangle ABC. This is from May, June 2010. Nixer and Lyceum, is that even a question? I mean, no offense to all Lyceum students. But yeah, definitely Nixer. Good job, Aisha. 480. Okay, hold on to your answer. That may be the correct answer. Sir, if this question did come in your era, did you get it? I think I got it right. I don't remember exactly, but I think I got it right. Pretty sure I got it right. 480, I think, is the correct answer. Let's see. So area of triangle ABC, if you want to find out area of triangle ABC, well, there are a lot of ways through which you can do that. You can actually use sine rule as well now. So considering that you have this length, which is 32, and considering that you have this length, which is 34, you can use sine rule. So half into 32 into 34 into sine theta. Now, as far as sine theta is concerned, you have the exact value of sine theta, that's 15 upon 17. So half into 32 into 34 into 15 upon 17. 15 upon 17. So let's work this out. 2 ones are, 2 16s are, 17 ones are, 17 twos are. 15 into 2 is 30. So 16 into 30. 16 into 3 is 48. 48 into 10 is 480 centimeters square. So good job. That's the correct answer. Okay. Now, okay, I'm going to make you guys do one more question of trigonometry, and I think then we'll move on. Yeah, do this question. This is from, I think, October, same year, but October, November. So go ahead, solve this question, then we'll do bearing. Have your Udemy courses been profitable? I don't know. I made the courses a long time ago, and yes, they have been profitable. Okay, more than my expectation. But am I going to make more? I don't know. Let's see. Did you or anyone who know take A-level further math and got good? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I know a few people who took further math and did well. Minus 4.5, let's see. So cos of DAC is this. So cos of DAC will basically be equal to cos of minus cos of CAB. So cos of DAC will be equal to minus cos of CAB. Okay, now CAB is basically which angle? CAB is basically A. Okay, so that's 4.5, so that means minus 4.5 is your answer. There you go. Okay, now do part B, where you have to find out AC. Further math, I will only suggest if it's like, if you don't find math and add maths challenging at all, and in AS you don't find P1 challenging at all. Although further math I think is now a 2-year course. But yeah, if you don't find math and add maths challenging at all, only then will I suggest that you take further math. Okay. How to determine cos, tan or sine? But I really hope कि आपका 9th को paper नहीं है. Sure, make video on tracing paper questions. I have made a video on tracing paper questions. Okay, just look up tracing paper symmetry, something like that. You'll find not plenty of videos, but you'll find 1 or 2 videos. Okay. Will it be not minus 5 upon 4 as it's reciprocal? No. Where does it say that it's reciprocal? Nope. It's not going to be minus 5 upon 4. It's going to be minus 4 upon 5. Okay. Sine rule. Okay. Yes, we can use sine rule. So AC, in order to calculate AC, here's what we're going to do. AC over sine B, which is then equal to, now we need a length, that's 10, and we also need an angle opposite to it, so over sine A. Now notice that we don't know what AC is. In fact, that's what we're here to find out. Sine B, however, we know what sine B is. It's 24 over 25. So 24 over 25 equals to 10 upon sine A, and what's sine A equal to? That's equal to 3 upon 5. Okay, so first you simplify this. 10 divided by 3 upon 5. So 10 divided by 3 upon 5 basically means 10 into 5 upon 3. Okay, so this is what you're looking at now. AC is equals to 10 into 5 upon 3 into 24 upon 25. So simplify before you multiply. 5 ones are, 5 fives are, 5 ones are, 5 twos are, 3 ones are, 3 eights are. Now if you multiply, what do you get? You get 16 centimeter. So AC equals to what? AC is equals to 16 centimeter, and there you go. That's your answer. Okay, now let's do a few, now let's go over bearing, okay, and then we'll go over the questions of bearing as well, okay. So basically with bearing there are a few prerequisites, okay, and the prerequisites are that your concept of angles should be up to the mark. Prerequisites. You should know exactly what alternating angles are. Okay, that's very important. Alternating angles का आपको पता होना चाहिए. You should know what corresponding angles are. Okay, you should know that very well, in fact. And you should know what are vertically opposite angles. Okay, now let's go over them one by one. So basically let's start with alternating angles. Now alternating angles exist if you have a pair of parallel lines. The second you have a pair of parallel lines, you will have alternating as well as corresponding angles. Okay, so with alternating angles, what do we look for? We look for the z or we look for the n, and obviously in all the many ways in which they can be formed. So basically if you have a pair of parallel lines, and if the question tells you explicitly that the two lines are parallel, not because they're looking parallel, now you've assumed that they're parallel. Okay, so if the question explicitly tells you that the lines are parallel, only then will you form alternating angles. If the question doesn't tell you explicitly, then please don't feel the liberty to assume that the two lines are parallel and consequently say कि oh because they look parallel इसलिए मैंने कहा कि चलो ये parallel ही होंगे और इनको equal कर दिया, ठीक है. So these are the many ways in which you can have alternating or corresponding angles. अब ये हो सकता है और एक n की ऐसे भी आपका n बन सकता है, ठीक है. Now the second two are actually just a reflection of the first two, okay, reflection and rotation of the first two, so you don't need to sort of memorize them separately. If you know the first two well, then you shouldn't have a problem in this. So parallel, these two angles will be the same, A and A. Again parallel, that means these two angles will also be the same, A and A, okay. Okay, so these are alternating angles basically. Now another form of angles that you have are basically corresponding angles, and again corresponding angles are formed when you have a pair of parallel lines. Corresponding angles, I think corresponding angles को लोग normally F से याद रखते हैं, ठीक है. So look for the F in corresponding angles. So basically if let's say you have a parallel line, okay, and you have a pair of parallel lines in fact, and then you have a line which is passing through these lines, so this angle will be the same as this angle, and only if you know for a fact that the two lines are parallel, okay. Please do not just randomly assume that the two lines are parallel. If you know for a fact that the two lines are parallel, only then will this property apply. So if this angle is let's say 8 degrees, then this angle will also be equal to 8 degrees. Now in bearing, this is how you can come across this property. In bearing, this is how this property is formed. So you may have something like this. You may have a line, okay, and you may have two norths extending from both the lines, okay. Now because we know that the two norths are parallel, so that means कि आपके ये वाला angle और ये वाला angle क्या होगा, same होगा. If this is 8 degrees, then this will also be 8 degrees, okay. Remember this rule, all right. Then you have the following, okay. Then you have related to parallel lines also, you have something that are basically supplementary angles. In the case of a pair of parallel lines, you also have supplementary angles, okay. In supplementary angles, look for the C, okay. Look for a C like this, or perhaps look for a C like this, okay. Now I don't know exactly what you call this, okay, but supplementary angle is enough. And this also happens when you have a pair of parallel lines. So again, if you go back to the first case, so let's say you have two norths that are being connected like this, okay. So let's say I don't extend the norths, okay. So remember this, that if this angle is equal to A, then this angle will be equal to what? This angle will be equal to 180 minus A. Or in other words, if this angle is let's say 60 degrees, then you know what this angle is going to be? This angle is going to be 120 degrees. Now in case you're interested why that is, that's because if you extend one of the two norths, you will notice that you have a pair of alternating angles, and this angle naturally becomes 60, and that is why the other angle becomes 120 degrees, okay. Yeah, I think that's what you call them, co-interior, yeah, something like that, okay. So you can also call them adjacent angles, by the way, okay. Okay, now, and then remember you also have vertically opposite, okay. Vertically opposite angles, in the case of vertically opposite angles, you don't need parallel lines, okay. If two lines cross, then you have a pair of vertically opposite angles. So isme what do we look for? Look for the x, okay. So if you have two lines that are crossing one another, then these two angles are going to be the same, A and A, and these two angles are also going to be the same, B and B, okay. So you got to know these properties by heart. Walaikum salam. Then the rules of bearing, okay. Now the rules of bearing. rules of bearing. So first of all, if let's say this is point A and this is point B, and let's say the question says find the bearing of B from A. Okay, so whatever letter that you have after the word from is your starting points. Okay, so remember that the letter after the word from is the starting point. So point number one, or you can say rule number one, is that the letter, point, whatever you want to call it, after the word from is the starting point. Okay, which in this case is A. And as a result, what are you going to do? You're going to make north at A. Now, when we say north, remember it's not just the north. What we prefer to do is we make the entire compass. Okay, so here we are at A, and like I said, make the entire compass at A. Okay, so that's rule number one. Rule number two is bearing is measured in a clockwise direction. So bearing is measured in a clockwise direction. Okay? Acha. Now the thing is, where do we stop? So if we start measuring in a clockwise direction, okay, and we keep on going, now this is where we stop. Now how do we know where to stop? We stop wherever we stop the second we reach the line that's connecting the 2 points. Okay, so let's write that down. Okay, stop when you reach the line connecting the 2 points. Which in this case are basically A and B. Okay. Now let's say that this is the angle that you're given. Let's say this is 30 degrees. Okay, so this is north, this is east, this is west, and this is south. Okay, now once you've done this, once you've stopped at the line that's connecting the 2 points, which in this case is A and B, now what you do is you give your answer, final answer in at least 3 digits. So remember to write that down. Final answer is given in at least 3 digits. Okay, so in this case the angle is going to be 90 minus 30, which is equal to 60 degrees, but we're going to give our final answer as 060. Okay, and a couple of rules that you must remember is that when the second you make your compass, remember that the angle formed between north, east, east and west, west and northeast, west and south is 90 degrees. So here's 90 degrees, here's 90 degrees, here's 90 degrees, here's 90 degrees. Okay, there you go. Okay, now conceptually, honestly speaking, this is all there is. Now there is one concept which will come in handy, and we've discussed this in past papers also. Okay, and this concept is called reverse bearing. This is the concept of reverse bearing. It's very important and it will come in handy. Reverse bearing is basically finding the bearing of A from B using bearing of B from A. Now this is like a shortcut. If you don't know this shortcut, it's not like it's the end of the world. You can still figure this out. Okay, without this shortcut also you can figure this out, and you don't really have to rely on it. But if you do, it will save you some time. Okay, it will save you some precious minutes in the exam. So let's say, here's how this works. If the bearing of B from A is theta. Okay, so if the bearing of B from A is theta, here's what you're going to do. In order to calculate the bearing of A from B, you will either do 180, theta plus 180. And when will you do theta plus 180? If theta is less than 180 degrees, or in order to calculate the bearing of A from B, you will do theta minus 180. And when do you minus 180? If theta is greater than 180 degrees. Okay, remember this concept. Okay, now let's do a few questions of bearing. Then I'd like you guys to do this. I'll give you guys 2 minutes. Solve this question when you have your answer. Yes, the notes will be available as soon as the stream ends. Okay, I'll upload it on Dropbox. You guys can download it from there. Okay. If you want, I'll also upload the solved PDF. You guys can download that also. Okay. 135 degrees. Okay, let's find out. So find out the bearing of C from A. That means you will draw the north at A. Okay, and you'll start measuring in a clockwise direction. And this is for the angle that you want. Okay, now let's read the question. If you read the question, it says ABC is an equilateral triangle, which basically means that all the angles are going to be 60 degrees each. So there you go. Your answer is going to be 75 plus 60. So what's 75 plus 60 equal to? That's equal to 135 degrees. And there you go. That's your answer. Okay. Then it says find the bearing of C from B. Okay. Find the bearing of C from B. Okay. So here's what we can do for this. How many marks is this? This is a 1 mark question. C from B. So notice what do we have after the word B? We have, after the word from, we have B. So that means the north that we're going to make will be at B. Okay. Now the angle that you want is this angle. Okay. The question is, how do we find out this angle? So here's what you can do. The answer that you guys are saying is 135. Let's see. I don't know if that's the correct answer. So basically, what you guys can do is, if you extend this north a little, this is the key. So find out this angle. Okay. If you find out this angle will be equal to 180 minus 135, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 45 degrees. That means this angle is 45 degrees, which means this angle will also be 45 degrees, which means this angle will be 15 degrees. Acha, by the way, I also realized that there's something else that you could have done. Something else that you could have done is this, that you can use this alternating angles. So if this is 75, then this angle will also be 75, and if this angle is 75, that means the angle that you have inside over here is 15 degrees. This is much easier actually. Okay, and now what you have to do is 180 plus 15, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 195 degrees. So there you go. 195 degrees is your answer. Where did the 60 come from? Read the question. The question says ABC is an equilateral triangle, so that is how we got 60. Okay. Okay, let's do another question. Okay, let's see if you guys can do this question. Tell me if you can apply the shortcut over here, and if yes, what is the final answer going to be? I can't say anything about the threshold for 0580, but it's definitely going to be on the higher side. 255, okay, let me check. So 180 plus 75, and the reason why we're doing 180 plus 75 is because it's the given bearing is less than 180. So what you get is 255 degrees. There you go. Okay. Now let's do another bearing question. Okay, I'd like you guys to do this. B part of bearing question. Okay. So the part B says find the bearing of C from B. So you make a north at B, you move in a clockwise direction till you reach the line that's connecting B and C. Now notice that this angle is 75. Due to alternating angles, this angle will also be 75. Now part of the 75 is 60. That means the remaining part is going to be 15. So 180 up until the straight line, another 15, that's 195 degrees. Okay. बट हाउ कैन आई, मैं अभी से थ्रेशोल्ड कैसे बता सकता हूँ? पेपर देखा है नहीं तो थ्रेशोल्ड के बारे में मैं क्या कह सकता हूँ? आई मीन a logical question, although I'm still not going to answer that question, but a logical question would be that what do you think? Is the paper going to be difficult or easy this time? But again, don't ask me that question because I don't know. I can't say anything. I don't want to say easy and get you guys too relaxed, and I don't want to say difficult and get you guys and freak you guys out. Okay. $210, let's see. 210, okay, let me check. So notice that the question says, first of all, it says that ABC is equilateral. Okay, so make sure to highlight or underline that. Then the question also says that C is due east of B. Okay, so if it's equilateral, that means all these angles will be 60 degrees each. Okay, and if all the angles are 60 degrees each, what do we have to find out? We have to find out the bearing of B from A. Now the bearing of B from A technically means that the angle that we have to find out is this angle. Okay, now how do you find out this angle? Here's what you can do. So if you extend the north that you already have at A, you can then find out what this angle is. Now how do you find out this angle? You need to know what this angle is. And since the question says that C is due east of B, that means this is going to be a right angle, which means that this will be 30 degrees and this will also be 30 degrees. Now you can find out the angle. It's going to be 180 plus 30 degrees, which is equal to what? Which is equal to 210 degrees. And there you go. Then in order to do part B, it says find the bearing of A from C. Okay, so you guys can use an easier method over here. Now that you know what this angle is, this angle is going to be 30 degrees. Okay, so the bearing of C from A is 150. So if let's say you find out the bearing of C from A, so C from A is 150. Now what would be the opposite of it? The opposite of it would be 180 plus 150. Why are we adding 180? We're adding 180 because it's less than 180 degrees. So what's the answer? The answer is equal to 330 degrees. And there you go. That's your answer. Okay, now let's do another question. Okay, let's do this one. Yeah, or you could do 360 minus 30 also. That also works perfectly all right. Yep, you could have done that. 360 minus 30. Okay. Since you're asked to find out what? You're asked to find out the bearing of A from C. So there's no one approach for bearing. Okay, there will definitely be a case where you'll find multiple approaches. So this is 30 degrees. Now, since this is the north at C, you will go a full circle. Now, when you go a full circle, you'll realize that you've gone 30 degrees extra, and you will come back 30 degrees by subtracting 30 from 360. Okay, you guys are saying 220. I think that's the correct answer. Let's see. So the question says find the bearing of A from B, and the question tells you 4 oil rigs are positioned at the vertices of a rectangle ABCD. The question further tells you the bearing of B from A is 40 degrees. Okay, if you already know what the bearing of B from A is, you can easily find out the bearing of A from B. All you have to do is take 40 and in it add 180 degrees. So what do you get? You get 220 degrees. And there you go. That's your answer. Then the question says find out the bearing of C from B. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this question. Bearing of C from B, so it's always a good idea to first mark what it is that you want. So this is what you want. Go ahead. $130. Okay. So basically, what is this angle going to be? This angle is going to be 140 degrees, and the reason behind that is something that we just learned, that these two angles will be supplementary. Okay. And this angle is 90. So technically what we're doing is 360 may say we're subtracting the sum of 140 and 90. Now 140 and 90 make up 210, and 360 minus 210 is equal to what? Is equal to 1. No, wait a minute. 140 and 90 doesn't make 210. 140 and 90 actually makes 230. Okay, yeah, that's more like it. 360 minus 230 is equal to what? Is equal to 130 degrees. And there you go. That's your answer. So the bearing of C from B is 130 degrees. Now, what about the last part? The last part which says find out the bearing of C from D. So C from D. Go ahead. Find out the bearing of C from D. How is A from B 220 degrees? That's because you're given B from A as 40 degrees. So if you want the opposite, you add 180, you get 220. Okay. All right, what about the third part? How to become as cool as you? I don't know. Keep trying, I guess. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. वैसे आप लोग पेपर्स क्यों डिस्कस कर रहे हैं? Well, what's the benefit of it? If anything, it's going to make you feel worse if you got the question wrong. 40 degrees, I don't know. Let's find out. So the question says find out the bearing of C from D. Okay. So C from D basically means that somehow, I don't know how, but somehow if you're able to find out what this angle is, that should do the trick. Okay. Now let's see if you have enough information to do that. Now we do have enough information to do that. How? Let's see. So if we use this, so if this angle is 130 degrees, why? Because of 90 plus 40, then that means this angle is going to be 50 degrees. And if this angle is 50 degrees, that means this angle is going to be 40 degrees. And notice that the question is asking you to find out the bearing of C from D. Now notice it's asking you to find out the bearing of C from D. So C from D is equal to what? Is equal to 40 degrees. But obviously you're not going to write it as 40 degrees. We're going to do 0 for 0. Okay. So there you go. That's your answer. Okay, let's do one more question on bearings. Let me find out a difficult question which you guys can do. And yeah, so do this question. This is a fairly recent question. It's from October, November 2020. And yeah, go ahead. Solve this. Sure, my IGCSE before went really bad. How my class found it hard. And what variant are you talking about? What variant are we talking about? Because as far as I can tell, variant 2 was fairly easy. Okay, so let's do part A. Part A says find out the value of x. So how do we find out the value of x? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Notice that x and y are in the ratio 3:7, so that means x is 3/10 of the total angle. Now how do we find out the total angle? The total angle will be this. So how do you work this out? 360 minus 70 and 70, which means 360 minus 140. And what is that equal to? That means 360 of 220. Let me double check. 3 minus 1 is 2, 6 minus 4 is also 2. Yep, so x is going to be 3/10 of 220. So let's see, what do we get? We get 66 as our final value of x. Okay. Now what about part B? Part B says find the bearing of C from O. Okay. Now in order to find out the bearing of C from O, we have all the relevant information. Now that we know what x is equal to 66. Okay. Now we can find out y, and in order to find out the value of y, here's what we're going to do. We can do 220 minus 66. Okay, so let's bring this down to 1. 10 minus 6 is 4, and you can't subtract 6 from 1, so 11 minus 6 can be done. That's 5, so 154. Okay, let me double check. 220 minus 66, so that's 154. Okay, so that means y is equals to 154. Now notice the question is asking you to find out the bearing of C from O. C from O basically means this. C from O means this. Now either you can do 70 plus 66 plus y, or you can do this. You can do 360 minus 70. Now 360 minus 70 is obviously much easier way. So 360 minus 70 is equals to what? Is equals to 290 degrees. And there you go. That's your answer. Then it says find out the bearing of O from A. Okay, so do this part. Find the bearing of O from A and tell me what your answer is. Find the bearing of O from A. There you go. And also let me know what method you guys used. Yep, 290 is the correct answer. Good job. Okay, 70, 250. All right, make up your mind. Let's see. So it says here, find the bearing of O from A. Okay, so first of all, we can do the opposite of it, right? We don't even have to work hard for the opposite of it. We already have the bearing of A from O. Now what's the bearing of A from O? That's 070. Now what you want is the opposite of it. Okay, so you have two options. Either you can add 180 or subtract 180. Now 70 is a value that's already less than 180, so we're definitely not going to subtract. Instead we're going to add 180. So 70 plus 180 equals to what? Is equals to 250 degrees. And there you go. That's your answer. Okay. Now I will encourage you guys to solve the remaining questions, okay, in this worksheet. And yeah, I think that's about it. Now I'm doing another stream shortly at 6 p.m. Okay, where I'm solving questions of coordinate geometry and graphs of inequalities. So make sure to tune in to that. ठीक है, and I'll upload the notes and I'll upload this solved version, partially solved version of this PDF. ठीक है, you guys can download it from there. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. I'll see you guys shortly when I'll be streaming, like I said, coordinate geometry and graphs of inequalities. Okay, so please do like the stream in case you haven't, and do subscribe to the channel in case you haven't done that yet. So that's it. See you guys shortly.